And if I look at religion, I never will use the term in the United States religious persecution. I just will not use it because in the United States, we do not have religious persecution. No one is being threatened with their life because of their faith. No one's threatened with extinction. Believe me, the government recognizes the churches sometimes for good, sometimes for ill, but certainly recognized. I think about some cases I'm handling right now, or situations that we're involved in. The Coptic Christians in Egypt. Now, how would you like to be in that situation? Awful. That's persecution. I've got a pastor, born in Iran, an American citizen, building an orphanage in his country of origin. Something about these orphanages, I'm not kidding, trying to help the helpless. He gets arrested in Iran. He's been in jail for 1.5 years. He's a U.S. citizen. We were across the table from his captors 2 weeks ago, and we were unable to secure his release. The President of the United States asked the President of Iran to release him, and they didn't release him. For the Coptic Christians in Egypt, that's persecution, what they're facing. Saeed Abedini is facing persecution. I got a call today from a state legislator. He's concerned that they may not allow his prayer or a particular prayer at their opening of their legislative session. That may be an act of religious discrimination. It's not persecution. Your situation, though, in Turkey is a bit of a hybrid. You have existence, not recognized. You have the right to worship, not really protected. You have a constitution that protects these various freedoms, but it's not particularly being forced. But what I did see, and I'm not going to take political sides in a government and a citizenry with that I'm not involved in. So I'm not taking sides in the Turkish debate. I can't. Except when it comes to one thing, liberty. Turkey represents that it is the model in the Middle East. In a Muslim-dominated culture, Turkey has been the model. Through ups and through downs, it's been the model. That model's not recognizing, as it stands right now, the legal personality of your church. Oh, it's fine to say that the patriarch is the patriarch for the folks, for the members of the church in Turkey. But it goes beyond that. You know, I don't like the idea of submitting lists to government to approve clergy. Could you imagine in the United States of America, if we made the Southern Baptist, I'm going to go to a completely different denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention is going to select a president, they have to get approval of the United States government before they do that. Which, by the way, what was going on in Israel in that regard, or with the Jordanians and the Palestinian Authority and this Ottoman decree, which they filed and followed Ottoman decrees that had no binding impact, legally speaking, but they still traditionally held to it. Disraeli, going back to him, and I say this because, again, a shared lineage, a shared political view, he's a conservative, said he backed the Ottomans during the conflict with Russia. So he wasn't anti-Turk at all. He went to the floor of the House of Commons in 1851 because in 1851 in England, Jews could not be members of the parliament. Was not allowed. He went to the floor of the House of Commons. I'm going to read you what he said. He could have given he was trained as a lawyer, he could have given a legal defense of why Jews should be admitted under principles of equality and neutrality and fundamental fairness. Instead, he gave a theological one. He said, the very reason for admitting the Jews is because they can share an affinity with you. Where is your Christianity if you did not believe in their Judaism? All the early Christians were Jews, he said. The Christian religion was first preceded by men who had been Jews. Every man in the early ages of the church, the time of Christ himself, were Jews. The Christian faith was propagated by a Jew. I will not take upon me, he said, that awful responsibility of excluding from the legislature those who are in the religion of the bosom of my Savior. If you had not forgotten this, what you owe these people, you as Christians would be only ready to seize the claims to those who profess this religion. 8 years later, Baron Rothschild was admitted to the House of Commons as a member of the House, member of the Parliament. He later provided England with the funds necessary to obtain access to the Suez Canal. I say the same thing to Turkish government officials, but instead of talking about Jews, I'm going to talk about Christians, Greek Orthodox Christians. You cannot forget the history of your own country and the impact that the church has had on that country. And that's why I was encouraged with some of the parliamentary discussion we had today. I think it was important, George, to bring in the various views, because you can't forget that. I'm going to encourage you to remember that. I know there are archons that are friends of mine that are anxious to proceed in court. I spend my life in court. I'm never anxious to go there. Andy was very kind in his announcement of the cases we won and de-escalate the one you lose, because you don't always win. But in the European Court of Human Rights, this is not a complicated case. But sometimes diplomacy can be viewed as war. War's not always by force. Diplomacy can be war. There's another quote from Benjamin Disraeli. Now, war doesn't mean violence, and war does not mean armies always, and war does not mean conflict in the traditional sense of it. But diplomacy can be war. The threat of a European Court of Human Rights is diplomatic, it is legal, it is political, it is force. An orphanage is returned. But you're fighting for more than an orphanage right now. You're fighting for sacred space. You'll win at the European Court of Human Rights. That's really not the issue, though. Tolerance isn't going to be your victory. The patriarch, the ecumenical patriarch, and the synod has to make the decision when it is the right time. Because there are consequences to decisions. But there is persecution in Turkey against Christians. We know that. You've got one of the great advocates here who has represented those that have been persecuted in Turkey. There have been people killed in Turkey. Bible bookstore operators, operators of Bible presses have been killed with cases not resolved. Sometimes only resolved after years. So what do we hope to accomplish? And again, I return to that book, Tancred, that Disraeli novel. Tancred, again, was the Christian prince. And he came to the Holy Land and met Eva, Jewish royalty. And she was talking about England. This is what Eva said to the Prince of Christianity, as he was referred to in this novel. I'm happy we met, and that you understand us a little. When you go back to England, and when you go back to Turkey, you will defend us when we are defamed. You will not let them persecute us, as they have in the past. That's my hope. That's my prayer for you. Nothing is too difficult for the brave, said Disraeli. But more important than Disraeli's commentary and statement and his family motto are these words out of the 16th chapter of Deuteronomy, the 20th verse. Justice, justice shall you pursue. For if you pursue justice, the Lord of hosts says, you will inherit the land of your fathers. That is my hope. That is my prayer for you. That is my prayer for all of us. Thank you very much.